Hey folks, oh no, I don't want to do that. Well, what options I have? No, it doesn't look like I have many. I've just spent an hour trying to get OBS to go. I can't figure that shit out. I don't know what the hell's wrong with it. It's driving me up the wall. So I had hoped to use that today, but I could not. I just couldn't for the life of me get it to connect to my YouTube channel. I don't know what the hell's up with it. This microphone's right in the way. So that's the new Fractal VP4 has just arrived, and there's a couple of Red Sound FRs that have arrived too to check out. So it is Tuesday morning here in Wellington, New Zealand. So it is now 10:30 a.m. I was going to do this at 9:30, but I could not get OBS to work. So hopefully you can hear everything okay. Let me know if you can't, or do let me know if you can. So I'm running through my basement. I don't know if you can see it, but back there, 45410 Victoria, because this thing doesn't have amp modeling in it. That's the idea of it. It's meant to be just and the effects side of the Fractal stuff. And I've said it before, I think Fractal have some of the best reverbs and delays you'll find out of anything. So we'll turn that delay off. Sweet verb. The thing with the Bassman is it doesn't have reverb. It's bone dry without it. But so there's a couple of things about this thing that kind of, I'm going to do a demo and review, like a proper one. Just thought I'd discuss it today. And if you have any questions, let me know. And we can talk about anything else too. If there's any other guitar stuff you want to know, let me know. Had a cool time in Nelson in the weekend. We played the opera in the park there. So I went down on Thursday and rehearsed with the Christchurch Symphony on Thursday night. And then had a day off on Friday, but ended up teaching a guitar lesson. And then there were all these obligations to go. I met up with family. There was drinks at the organizer's house, all those sorts of things that you do. And then we rehearsed on the Saturday in the venue, sound check really, full rehearsal. And then we did the show that night, and it went really well. Well, the orchestra's pretty good, Christchurch Symphony, I think. I took this guitar, and I took my FM3 because this hadn't arrived. Actually, this would have been perfect because I was running into a Fender Twin. They'd provided a Fender Twin, which, now that I'm kind of using modelers more and more, probably wouldn't have been my first choice. But of the options they gave me, that was probably the best amp, but no effects loop. And the thing with what I usually do with the modelers is I run them into the effects loop. And that way I can at least use the tubes and the speaker and use it as a monitor, right? But they didn't have that, so what I did was just turn the modeling off and just use the effects part of it. It worked really well, which is what this does essentially. But there's a couple of things about this that I've only had it here for a day to check out. So, but if you have 4 effects, right, and you can run at any one time. But if you hold down button 4, for example, which is reverb, I can select one of 4 reverbs. So let's go to this one, the Ursa Major. I hold it down and I go Hall Large, which is what I was using before. So this is with nothing on. This is just the amp. Makes a big difference, right? I hope you're hearing this okay. I find YouTube, this is the YouTube studio, tends to make guitar go a bit funny because it recognizes it and goes, oh, that's not a voice, and does weird things with it. Like I mentioned earlier, I was trying to get OBS to work to try and do that, and I just spent an hour on it again and can't get the stupid bloody thing to work. Just won't connect in, and I tried resetting my password, and then they send you a code, and then you do all that, and it just didn't want to work. I don't know why. So frustrating. Because I think it's good software, and it's free. But yeah, so bear with me for the live stream today, and I'll try and get it sorted for next week, which is what I said last week. But like I said, I just spent another hour on it. So that's the reverb delay, same deal. That's my standard delay, which is like a warmer analog delay type thing. And I go for 4 repeats. By about 4, it's died out. But again, if you hold button 3 down, you can select one of 4. So the next one I made is like a louder delay and with modulation. So like a Memory Man type thing. It's pretty cool. And then a sweep delay. Right. And the 4th one is reverse. Might sound a bit weird because this microphone will be picking up my guitar, but so it's pretty cool. Those are like the main sounds I would use. That's probably what I'd use most of the time. I played that in the weekend. Such a beautiful song. But yeah, that's probably the main sound I'd use. And then tremolo, same deal. You can change these to be any effects you want to drives, whatever. I'd probably put a drive pedal in front of this and just use an analog drive. And then that frees up another bank for an effect. But this plus a drive pedal or 2, you'd have everything you need. It's a harmonic tremolo. As you can see, bias trem at a faster speed. I don't know what neon trem means, but I just turn the speed up. Do let me know if you can hear this okay. I've not seen anybody in the chat yet, so I'm assuming you're all hearing it okay. And that's something I wouldn't normally use, but I was thinking, what am I going to do with the 4th slot? Real slow tremolo. It almost kind of sounds like a vibrato. But harmonic trem is my favorite. The Flint is really where I got that from. The Flint pedal, you know, I'd pretty much set that to harmonic tremolo and just leave it on that all the time. But say you did that, plus you went, let's go the huge stone quarry. Go bridge pickup. Right, it's kind of spaghetti western, isn't it? Or something like that. Yeah. Oh no, I want that one. You can see how intuitive it is. Like when I started using this thing, I didn't even have didn't even plug it into my computer and managed to use it like straight off the bat, which it's not touch screen either. I don't know about touch screen on stuff like this. I know it's kind of easier to navigate stuff because you can just kind of move stuff around and whatever. But I find like Pro Gear doesn't really suit touch screen. And I'll qualify that because the thing with it is that, you know, stuff gets broken and you if the touch screen goes, you're kind of stuffed. So I think just a regular screen is more solid and you've got enough controls. It's super easy to use. And then the last one I've got is I set up a pitch. Now, I was thinking about what to do in this slot because you've only got 4 slots, right? And one thing I was thinking about was doing chorus. But I figured that pitch is probably more useful because I can use a detune to get chorus, right? So I set up an octave sound, which is one of my favorite things that I use. Hey, Jeffrey Boyle, how you doing? Can you hear everything okay? Right, it's something I'd use a lot. But then if I hold it down, like I mentioned, I can go to the dual detune. I'll probably do that a bit slower, actually, to be honest. And the way you do that is if you just hit page across, you can start getting into all the editing stuff, but I won't do that right now. If I go this one, detune quad. Oh, great. I'm glad the sound is good. So that's a pretty full-on intense chorusing. So I've got two options there. And then I was thinking, what am I going to do with the fourth one? Well, crystal echoes, right? I know why that was a bit intense. I was thinking, gee, that chorus sounded weird, but I had tremolo on slow. That's better. There we go. That's what I should have been showing you a minute ago. So you have like two different stages for two different types of chorusing. I probably only use that one. It's funny, I was teaching a student last night a song, and it had a load of chorusing on it. And I said to this guy, I said, can you hear the guitar? And he goes, nah, I can't. And we listened through the track, and I went back to the chorus again. I go, can you hear the guitar? And he goes, no, can't. And I said, what, that little bit just there? And he goes, oh, is that a guitar? I think that's what happens when you have a load of chorusing on stuff. It's like, it just kind of becomes kind of not guitar. And for the longest time, I didn't use chorus. I hated chorus, actually, to be honest. I kind of thought chorusing was a bit dumb. And but now I've changed my view on that, because now it's like I use it to be the effect it is, right? I don't leave it on the whole time, unless that's appropriate. But I might just bring it in. Could do with a touch more level too. Any questions? Does sound really good. There's a couple of things with this that I haven't seen on other units. It has SPDIF, so digital in and out, which if you have a RCA coax cable, like a digital cable, you can connect that up to other devices. Now that's fantastic. I don't know why they don't put that on a lot of other devices. I know why they don't. It's because it costs a lot of money to put that kind of technology in there. But say you had an FM3 or an FM9, you could connect this in, and then that would actually get you a digital connection in. So no signal loss, no thing. My buddy Leon Todd actually did a video about that, which was fantastic. Really good video showing how he linked in an FM3 to a VP4. And then essentially you could use this like post effects, right? So your FM3 does your pre-effects and your amp modeling. And then this could be post effects stuff like maybe compression or reverb that would be after the amp, right? Which is typically where I want it. And that would free up a reverb block in your FM3. Right, which is one of the ones that uses a lot of grunt. You could have your delays, because I'd have delays after the amp, you know what I mean? Or at least after the preamp part of it. So that gives you a whole bunch more power in a different kind of way, and 4 more switches, right? So you could actually do a hell of a lot by doing that, FM3 plus that. And the thing is, that's still more portable than an FM9 or any other device, or a Helix or whatever. What's the big Helix unit? I don't even know. This guitar worked a treat though on that gig in the weekend. It really was good. It just makes me play a certain way, which is what I like about it. And like I've said before, one thing I like about this guitar is I don't see other people using this. And so to me, it's like Strats. This is one of the reasons I bought this in the first place. It's actually blue. It kind of looks black on camera, but it's faded a fair bit. hopefully you can see that. There you go. It's actually blue. So what I mean, at that light, it looks black. I think in the 90s, early 2000s, this is 2001, Porritt Smith had some issues with their color of their instruments. They would often fade. Buddy of mine has one that it's kind of gone brown. I think it was I can't remember what color it was. Maybe it was cherry or something like that. It's gone brown, like literally brown. It still looks cool, but it's not the color it was. You know what I mean? I don't know why that is. But yeah, anyway, back to this. So SPDIF out, in and out. It's fantastic, right? You can record via USB. It's got USB-C on the back, so you can actually kind of record via that, which could be super useful, especially if you want to go out of it, but you don't want to capture the amp. That could allow you to reamp kind of stuff very easily, you know what I mean? Or go into your computer. So you're monitoring with an amp, but you're running into your computer to record, and then you end up with like an ampless but a fixed recorded chain. Then you could run it through a plugin for a whole different sound. So you could maybe mic the amp and do that, and then run that through a plugin to get whatever you wanted to do. Really, you could do stuff like you could put the VP4 in stereo and pan it hard left and right, and with crazy kind of effects or plugins, all that kind of stuff, and then have your amp run straight down the middle. Yeah, a whole lot of options with that. It's kind of cool. But yeah, so stereo in and out, and the pristineness of this stuff. Like I said, I'm going to do a demo kind of once I get my head around it. I'm only just figuring it out now. One thing I was worried about was getting to the tuner. I see these two buttons here. If you press them at the same time, you can change the stuff. I'm pretty much just only ever going to use it in effects, but you could do whatever. But if you hit tuner, that's your tap tempo. Notice you still have sound. You have to actually hit button 3 to mute it, which at first I was like, oh man, 2 buttons, what a pain. But it totally makes sense, because if you go to tuner mode, then you've got your tap tempo, right? And while you're tapping tempo and while you're playing, you want while you're tapping tempo and you want sound, right? So I think that's actually a genius way of doing it, right? Because now I've got tap tempo. If I want to mute for tuning, I hit 3 and just hit out. And I was worried, like I was thinking, oh, I have to hit those 2 buttons. But then I realized that you can actually hold button 1 and 2 will get you the same thing. Or if you hold 3 and 4, it takes you to the same place. And because they're close enough together, you can actually get there quite easily. You could tune while you're playing a song. But one of the things I've always liked about the Fractals is along the top here, you have this little indicator that shows your tuning. So I often will just use that. It works really well. Now, I haven't quite figured out how to run a volume pedal, but I did look through the manual last night, and it showed that you can set up an expression pedal to run volume, and it will actually work just like a volume pedal. Hey, Harry says, Nick, what are your thoughts on Tame Impala? Don't know the music. Maybe I should. I've heard the name before. Is it Tame Impala? Maybe I think Tama because of Tama drum kits. Is it cool? Like, is that a band you like? I mean, it's not one that I know. Tame. Okay, cool. Jeffrey Boyle says, Harry, they're playing them on WPRB Princeton, New Jersey College Radio. Oh, awesome. No, I don't know them. I've heard the name, but Kevin Parker. Don't know. I'll have to, after the live stream, I'll go and have a listen. Hopefully the guitar's coming through clear. Like I said, I've noticed YouTube kind of thinks it's background noise, and there's no way to kind of turn that off. And I can't get OBS to work. I don't know what the freaking heck is wrong with it. See what I mean about this guitar? You can get a lot of different sounds, but what I found since I changed the pickups, is they're more balanced now. Like if I go to the neck pickup, I'll put the volume on 7, which is usually where I run it. I'm running a treble bleed too, so I find that kind of just takes off some bottom end. To the bridge pickup. 2. See, none of them sound a world away from each other. I find that with some guitars, you go to neck pickup, then you switch down to bridge pickup, and all of a sudden it's a different guitar. I find Telecasters a bit like that. I love the Tele, but I find that with the Telecaster, I almost want to have a tone control just for the bridge pickup, just to notch it off a little bit. And apparently that's a common mod on Teles because people generally don't turn down the tone control on the neck pickup, just on the bridge. So you have the tone control wired just to the bridge pickup, so you can turn it down and just make it a little warmer. Oh, great. I'm glad the guitar sounds good. Thank you, sir. Yeah. And then I'd run a drive pedal before it as well. I haven't got anything set up at the moment. But it does sound really pristine. That's the thing with this stuff. That Fractal do, their effects are amazing. Everybody talks about the amp modeling, but the effects is one of the big things. You know, their effects really are superb. Especially their reverbs and delays. They really put a lot of attention into making those sound great. I'll give you an example. If you look at this, is what they call huge stone quarry. You can probably hear the weather outside. It's got all the complexity of actually being in a big quarry type space. And that if you were in a space and you make a loud noise, it's going to open up that reverb in that space in a way that's different if you make a very soft noise, right? See how it almost going, it's like fluctuating? But it's different when you play it loud. You see what I mean? Yeah, it's pretty freaking cool. And one thing I'm gonna, when I do the demo, I'll discuss that kind of who I think this is for, because for some people it's going to suit them, for others not so much, and whether you should buy an FM3 or a VP4, because for some people this might be better, and for other people the FM3 might be better. I think the FM3 has some advantages, obviously, with having the amp modeling in there, but you can turn it off. But this has some advantages. This is smaller and lighter. That's a benefit. You could put this on a pedal board much easier. It's like pedal board friendly. It runs on 9-volt, right? Which the FM3 doesn't. You need to run that on a jug cord. So yeah, this could integrate into a pedal board. This plus a couple of pedals, and you've got like a killer rig. I'd run what was I going to say? I would run pedals in front of it, and then that kind of frees up the drive blocks. Although the drive blocks are decent, in fact, more than decent. If I go, how do I get? Still learning figuring out how to use this thing. Oh, I'm not going to mess with it. No, I'm not going to mess with it. The drive blocks are the same ones that you get in the Fractal stuff. So, you know, you can have a BB Pre, the Zen Drive, any of those kind of classic pedals. It's got them all in there, and you can use those. But to me, it's like I'd rather free up a bank for an effects sound and then use an analog drive. And I find that what I find with drive pedals for me, and it's one of the reasons I use my Dude pedal or my BB preamp or whatever into the FM3. It's not that I can't do it in the FM3. It's more that having the pedal external allows for more controls that I don't need to, and frees up stuff in the FM3 for other stuff. And I just like something tactile about it, having it right there on its own controls, no menus, just going boom. Because I change things like all the time, and sometimes I'll change them during a song. So we'll be playing, and maybe like I'll play like a rhythm guitar part with it down, and maybe for the solo, I know I've got 4 bars where I come in the solo, and I'm going to juice the gain a bit and maybe crank it up a little bit. If I'm on the neck pickup and I know I want to solo with that, the dude's got quite a bit of bottom end, so often I'll take I think they call it deep, but it basically means a bass control, and I turn the bass control down and the treble up if I'm on the neck pickup. If I'm on the bridge pickup, sometimes I'll just dial back the treble, that kind of stuff to make it sing a little more. But I do that on the fly, like while I'm playing. So I like having an analog pedal there. I also think analog, when it comes to drives, often sound better. Certain things, like fuzz pedals, for example. I think fuzz pedals analog works better. And that's partly because I think that there's a way that it interacts with your pickups and your guitar that's just different from how digital stuff does. But I'm not much of a fuzz player, but I find that, just having a couple of pedals in front of stuff really works. But then, if like weight was a limit and I was having to carry this stuff and it wasn't, I was wanting to reduce the weight down, I wouldn't take a pedal and I'd just use the drive in it. Good to have options, isn't it? The Bassman is a pretty sweet amp. I don't know if you can see it back there. I reckon those are the greatest amps ever made. 1959 Bassman. I think almost every other amp sort of sounds like it has a wet blanket over it to me. They sound, this just has a clarity about it. One thing I do find with the Bassman, though, is it doesn't like pedals if it's at low volume. I find that it's sort of almost like, a lot of amps are like that, right? Like the classic tube screamer thing. Tube screamers don't work into low volume amps. They just don't, because you've got that blend of a clean tone in the pedal plus the drive, which is how a tube screamer works, right? So if you've got that into a clean amp, that clean blend stays clean. Whereas if you got that into a distorted amp, then that's kind of why it works. You know what I mean? It'll push that clean part of the tube screamer, and then they kind of become almost like a boost. And the Bassman's a bit like that because it has a sparkle about it. It's got that sparkly thing which I don't really want to hear when I'm in an overdrive tone. It's sort of, I find that distracting. It was a funny thing. There were drinks after the show put on by the organizer, and so we all turned up, as you're supposed to. And we were sitting around. There was 4 of us after the gig. One of the singers, a violinist from the orchestra, myself, and then the husband of one of the other singers. And he's actually an arranger, like a professional arranger, and he writes for the orchestra a lot of the time. So he came down to hang out, which was cool. But we realized that 3 of the 4 of us that were at that table were all YouTubers. We all do YouTube. I don't even think of myself as a YouTuber, but I suppose I probably am. I mean, that's what they describe me as. They said, "Oh, Nick's a YouTuber as well," and I was like, I suppose I am. Although I kind of don't think of myself in that sense. Do you know what I mean? I think of myself as a pro musician, and YouTube is just another thing that you do, right? But three of the 4 of us were. The only one that wasn't was the singer, right? And she probably has a YouTube channel and has probably posted some videos of her gigs and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But I thought, gee, that's a change. You wouldn't have seen that even 5 years ago, where the bulk of the people sitting at the table all have YouTube channels and doing their thing. About three different things, right? My stuff is about guitar. The arranger guy, his stuff is about Gil Evans primarily. And the violinist is all about violin technique. He said, because he struggled to find people doing exactly what he does, so kind of put it out there in the world. I think that's cool. Yeah, we played some cool tunes, you know. So that's Respect. Aretha Franklin's got this weird bridge. Oh, so we're in C, and then it goes. So it's like it goes up a flat fifth to the 4 chord, and then 2, and then it goes back up a semitone to G, and then the verse comes back in on G. It's like very unusual, right? Like that's kind of unusual writing. To normally you would set up the change back, but instead of having the same chord, is quite unusual, but it really works. And there's a lot of kind of country guitar parts in that song. If you ever listen real closely, there's like whatever it is, but it's something like that kind of buried in there. And then of course there's the part I played, which is just essentially like a 2 and 4 stab, but it's a little different in that it's like 1, 2. So it plays beat 1 as well as the 2. 1, 2, 4, right? And the chart I had all 4 beats written in, but I don't really hear beat 3 played very much. I mean, it could be in there a little bit. It could be like, probably is something like that. I think that was Cornell Dupree, Uncle Funky. If you don't know who he is, go and check him out. I mean, that stuff, it's awesome. He's such a great guitar player. I really liked his playing a lot with the Gadd band, Gadd Gang, Steve Gadd's band with Richard T. and Cornell Dupree, and who else was in it? Can't even think, but the Gadd Gang back in the day was awesome, and Cornell Dupree sounded awesome in that band. It's funny, we this orchestra gig in the weekend had a Fender Twin, right? Those amps are loud, and I cranked the shit out of it. I was just like, okay, like I got a job to do, and I thought, am I going to get moaned at by the violinists about this? And no, they generally didn't. They were, but the band kind of crept up in volume when it came to the gig, which is what usually happens, right? You do the sound check and everybody's on their best behavior, and then when it comes to the gig, it's like people let rip. That's what you got to do, right? But yeah, so I had the amp on about 4, which for a Fender Twin is pretty much as loud as it gets. After that, they just start breaking up. Yeah, 3.5, 4 is generally where I'd try and get any kind of tube amp. That's usually where they start to break up. So yeah, it was right on that edge of still being clean, but it was a big stage, so I kind of figured. And then when it came to the solos, I hit them hard with the dude pedal. And again, was pretty cranking loud, and I was like, well, I don't care at that point. There's a job to be done, and if it's loud, it's. I liked Robin Ford's saying. I remember Jeff McEllang talking about this, saying, if you don't know his channel, check him out. Really great YouTube channel. I've watched a lot of his stuff, but Jeff was saying that someone said to Robin Ford, because he played with Robin Ford a bit, and someone said to Robin Ford, you're really loud or something. And Robin said something along the lines of, the guitar's a loud instrument. That's a great response. It's kind of like drums are a loud instrument, right? I believe Robin plays loud, but I don't think he plays that loud. You know what I mean? Like, he plays, I mean, he does play loud, I from what I understand, but it's like, think about the balance of the music. Have you ever heard a Robin Ford album where the guitar is quieter than the drums? No, right? Like, that's not the way things are supposed to be balanced. The guitar is supposed to be the loudest thing. It's his voice is the guitar, or his singing, but generally it's his guitar, especially if he's playing an instrumental tune. So the balance of it should be guitar top, then it should be like bass, keyboard, all that kind of stuff, and then drums kind of in about the same place as well, right? So wherever like the balance of the band is, Robin's guitar should be above that. Doesn't mean he's loud. It means that to me that's appropriate, because that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. So at least that's the way I see it. What time is it where you all are? Is it late at night? It's 11 o'clock here in the morning. I had planned to do this earlier in the morning, but as I mentioned, I just could not get OBS to work. That software kind of drives me nuts. Oh, some guy says it's 4 p.m. Oh, cool. So does that mean you're kind of around the LA area, or middle of somewhere in the same kind of time zone? Harry says it's 5 p.m. on a Monday, probably then, if you're those times, I'd assume. I got a couple of jazz gigs this weekend, actually. It'll be interesting. I've got a trio gig on Saturday. It's for a birthday party for a friend's father. That'll be cool. So I got a double bass player and a drummer, and we're going to play some jazz tunes. And they've actually asked us to play Bright Size live. Thanks, some guy. That makes sense. So we'll play this. Actually think I'm going to take this guitar on Saturday to the gig, even though it's a jazz gig, and I probably should play a jazz box or something. I kind of just want to play this now at the moment. I'm kind of inspired by playing this guitar and how it's making me play. It makes me play a certain way, and I can make it sound jazzy. Like if I was to go this kind of tone and bring the tone control back quite a bit. You're probably hearing the microphone picking up the strings, but yeah, you get the idea. I could do it with this just easily. So I probably will take this, and I'm enjoying playing this at the moment, and it's making me play a certain way, which is the main reason to play it. Eastern Standard Time, I see. So Aaron says, how do you play so fast without those speed holes? This guitar has some speed holes of its own in it. I've moved the strap button over here, so I ended up just filling it up and putting black ink in it and stuff. It's got a couple of extra speed holes here where the tuners were changed, so that's why this guitar can play so fast. He's referring to my Telecaster. My Tele has a couple of holes here to be able to adjust the neck pickup, because the telly design is a stupid one when it comes to the neck pickup adjustment. It screws into the body, which is partly why they sound good, right? I think they sound better than screwed into the pickguard. Don't believe me? That's what Eddie Van Halen believed, that you screw a pickup into the body, it sounds better. I've heard some luthiers say that it sounds darker screwing it into the body. I think that's possibly true, and I think that it probably sounds more resonant because it's connected to the guitar, right, rather than connected to a bit of plastic just floating. So to me, it makes more sense to screw them into the body of the guitar, right? So which is what they do on a telly, but the pickguard comes around here and it goes underneath the fingerboard, and there's no way you can get the pickguard out because you can't get it between the pickup and the neck. So it's super annoying. You have to take the neck off to adjust the neck pickup up and down. And then, you might move it up a little bit, put the neck back on, and then you go, oh, it's still too low. So you have to take the neck off. It's just a dumb way of doing it. So I got a drill bit and just drilled a couple of holes so I can access the screws and move it up as I need to, right? And just made a lot of sense to me. Aaron says, getting a drill as we speak. I don't have time to practice. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny what people do with their instruments. To me, it's like, I've never felt the desire to keep anything I have stock. I just change it. It had new pickups in it. It's got new tuners, which I wouldn't have done, but that's what a repair guy did. He said that would help it, that it was going out of tune because of it. Anyway, it's had new pots, new electronics. So these are 500K pots. The switch is still the original switch, is working. Yeah, just change whatever you need to do. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, it's a tool. You adjust the tool to suit. I mean, and it's funny, people get all purist about that kind of shit. And they're like, oh, well, I have to have the exact Jimi Hendrix kind of chain, to be able to do my whatever. And I'm like, you do realize that Hendrix couldn't get the equipment he wanted, so he got Roger Mayer to modify pedals. He modified guitars. He used the latest stuff, right? He wasn't like stuck with using 60s Strats when 70s Strats were available. So he was forward thinking. So I think a guy like him, if it was around now, he'd be forward thinking. He'd be using this stuff, right? He'd be using whatever gets the job done and being creative with it. Because that's the key thing. It's like, what are you going to do with it? And the crazy thing, I think, too, is thanks for tuning in, some guy. Have a good day. Yeah, and that's the thing with it, is it's like, how do people be creative with it? Well, you do that by learning what's come before you, and then just do your own thing with it. And you got to kind of break the rules a bit. And the thing with breaking the rules is like, that's kind of tricky, right? Because you can't break the rules till you know the rules, right? Otherwise, it just sounds like randomness. Yeah, Jeffrey Boyle says gears get worn with mileage. They do, but generally, if a guitar's going out of tune, I haven't found it to be the tuners most of the time. No, I'd say more often than not, it's the nut needs recut. And I don't really know that it was particularly going out of tune. I suspect he just wanted to sell a nice set of tuners to me, but hey, it worked. I put them on. This guitar actually holds really good tuning. It kind of... It's staying in tune and it's non-locking. I don't have locking tuners on here, and it just holds tune. And that's because it's free to move through the nut. This is the original Paul Reed Smith nut, which I don't know how they make it of, graphite or something, maybe. Aaron says, the day I got my R9, I got a new saddle, new nut, and changed the pickup height, etc. Gibson purists would hate me. Yeah, do it, man, if it's what you need to do. I always find whenever I get a new guitar, it needs... Excuse me. Oh, it's been crazy since I've been back. It's funny how, I was only away 4 days, but it's like a whole lot of other things are banked up now and I'm so behind. But anyway, You know, it's like change whatever you need. And I find whenever I get a new guitar, the first thing I do is I take it to go and get it set up properly to how I want it, right? Because usually they come with crappy strings. You know, they'll use whatever Diodario, whatever they've got, and I like coated strings. So I use Elixir 11 to 49 or 10 to 46. This has got 10 to 46, but you know, I want to change the strings. You change the strings, well, now the tremolo is going to move, or if it doesn't have a tremolo, the neck's going to move, and so you need to get it set up. So I just always factor on that when I get something new, and this guitar probably needs a set up actually. Replaced with steel frets. Yeah. Tuning stability is all about the neck, break, angle, and nut is very important, hence why I got mine changed. OptiWebs, these are nano webs. I like the nano webs. The OptiWebs are the ones that have less coating, and I just like how slippery these feel. Do you remember those old fast fret things that you used to get? You know, the little stick thing that you'd rub on the strings to kind of freshen them up and give them a little more slip and less grip. Well, that's kind of what Elixirs feel like to me. I think I was one of the first guys to use Elixirs here. And so, yeah, but I am going to try out String Joys when I get a chance. I bought a set and I'm going to give them a try. They're a coated string, so we'll see. I did try the DR strings that were coated, but they didn't work for me, which was really unfortunate because that offered me an endorsement too, which would have been nice. But last year I started getting a little bit of pain in my arm when we Will Rock You. So I went down a gauge of strings. It wasn't actually caused by that, but it just kind of made me go, I need to be careful of this, you know what I mean? So yeah, and I found with the DR strings, they did sound good, but they also felt really grippy because they coat them in a different way. They don't coat the outside of the string. What they do is they coat the core, the bit in the middle, and then they wrap the string over it. So they still feel like regular strings, but they've got a coating to protect the core. Thing is, I want to protect the whole string, like with a plastic coating, right? And that's what makes them last. These strings here have been on here for a couple of weeks now. I put them on before that gig. And they sound just as good as they did the day I put them on. And I got 2 gigs this weekend, and I'll use this for both of them probably because one gig, jazz trio gig, as I mentioned, but I also have doing a fusion-y type gig with some young cats, which will be fun. Yeah. I use Elixirs because my sweat rusts out on non-coated strings immediately. Yeah, that's the same with me too. Like I find that if I use regular strings, they just rust too quick, and because I don't have overly sweaty hands, but enough, right, to kind of do it. So I got better things to do than change strings. I just want to leave them on. The other thing I find too is like strings have this settling in period, you know what I mean? And then once they're settled in, they're good, right? And that's kind of what Elixirs sound like to me. They don't sound as bright as new strings, but they sound like maybe a day old strings, and then they stay like that. And that's great with me because when they're a day old, that's when they're settled in and they're not going out of tune so much and all that. Aaron says he uses String Joy Orbiters now. I think those are the ones I got, which are coated but feel like non-coated. Yeah, I think those are the ones I got, but I got 11 to 49, and I'm using 10s on this guitar. These are 10 to 46. So yeah, and I think they're 10 to 48. So it'll probably mean I'll need to do a setup on it. And that's kind of where I'm like, I will get to that. Because even like the 46 to the 48 it's thicker, so it's probably going to grip here, and this is just working as it is. Aaron says, I find with Elixirs, I change them once they break, lol. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't change them when they break because I don't tend to break strings very rarely. For me, what the telltale sign is the D string starts getting all furry. And what that is when your pick's hitting it, it's actually kind of wearing away at the plastic at that point, the little plastic coating. And I find that by the time I've sort of, worn through and it started getting furry, like you can see all the bits of plastic sticking out, that's when it's time to change them. Yeah, I don't tend to break strings, very rarely these days. And they last forever and don't sound dull. Love them. Always buy the 3-packs. I buy the 3-packs too. They tend to work out cheaper. Although they're still, I think they were just one of the companies was saying they were just a promotional thing. They didn't have them permanently. Although I remember going to a music shop and they had a bunch of them and I should have just bought them. Yeah, strings are ridiculously expensive here in New Zealand too. I don't know about where you guys are. Probably cheaper in Australia, Aaron, I'd imagine. So that was a bit of Misty. We'll probably play that this weekend, I'd imagine, at this gig, the jazz gig on Saturday. Definitely not at the Jazz Fusion gig on Sunday. So 2 jazz gigs in a weekend. That doesn't happen to me these days very often. Most of the stuff I do now is kind of pop or funk or soul, a lot of blues gigs, jazz related, like, but to do jazz trio gig, I used to do a lot of them. I don't really do many of them now. And that's kind of by design. I've kind of moved away from doing jazz trio stuff. Yeah, I do try and live stream stuff from time to time. I was actually thought about live streaming that Opera in the Park gig, but the internet connection was a little bit funky. Yeah, so I ended up just filming it on my GoPro, and I'll probably release some guitar cam stuff if you guys are keen. Let me know if you want to see that, and I'll release some videos of that. Because I set it up my GoPro, and what I do is I kind of stick it behind the music so that it's not distracting, because I find that, some of the players, if they see a screen on, they might be like, it's kind of, they'll start looking at it instead of, yeah, jazz doesn't get the woman. Well, I don't know. Most jazz musicians I know are usually married. But then, in saying that, my channel is 99.9% dudes, right? Maybe that's a guitar thing though, not necessarily jazz. I don't know. And it's funny. I remember talking to Mark Lettieri about that, and he showed me his analytics for his Instagram, because I didn't even know you could get your analytics for Instagram. So he set it up on my phone, but he showed me his, and it was all dudes, or like 99.9% dudes. It's like, it's totally cool. Maybe women just don't want to play guitar. I don't know what is generally. I know some badass female guitar players though. One thing with this guitar too, it's not the easiest guitar I have to play. That Sko guitar, you can see there's probably the easiest to play in terms of like, you know, dexterity and facility on it and that. But what I like about this guitar is it makes me play a certain way. And that's kind of the... I'm going to try this. Pretty cool duplex, isn't it? Aaron says Larry Basilio is one of my favorite female guitar players. She's amazing, isn't she? Phenomenal voice, leading his great ear for melody and high skilled ceiling. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to read that. It's really small font on the screen all the way over there. Yeah, she's amazing. I think she's really great. I don't, and the funny thing with her is I don't even think of her as a female guitarist. It's like that's not the important part. The important part is she just plays great. I mean, even locally, there's some really good female guitar players around New Zealand too. The girl who normally plays with the Christchurch Symphony that I played with on the weekend, Heather Webb's really a fantastic guitar player. I rate her highly in terms of New Zealand guitar players. And again, to me, it's not even about her being female. It's just she plays great. Male, because to be honest, I don't really care, male, female, whatever. Like, how do you play? What do you like to be around? Those are the things that matter. Do you know what I mean? And it's funny. I used to do gigs with this female drummer who was really good in a big band, and people used to come up to her all the time and just be like completely rude. You know, I remember this older couple come up to her and they said, "You're a really good drummer for a girl," and she was like, and then walked off. And it was like, because that's really insulting, isn't it? Like, you're really good for a girl. If you. That's what I felt like saying, but I'm not going to be like that. They pay their ticket price or whatever. But yeah, it was just really, really, it's unbelievable to kind of speak to someone like that. Do you know what I mean? It's you either play good or you don't, right? Women are great on classical. Sometimes not too. There are great male classical players and female. I don't think it's about people's gender. It's got nothing to do with it, or it's, to me, it's like you play good or you don't. And what do you like to be around? Because believe me, there's nothing worse than being around someone who's just difficult. Rotary. Alright, so I go like that and like that. I should be able to go enter. I'm still figuring this thing out. No. What have I done wrong? Oh, I don't bloody know. There is a way. I'll figure it out. Synth. You can probably hear the strings of the guitar a bit. That's kind of a sound that's kind of quirky. Probably, and then the thing is that those sort of sounds. Oh, there's a volume. Okay. And a wah drive. Let's go there. Don't know what drive it is. Oh, there we go. Rat distortion. One of the least favorites I ever. Oh, Aaron, for sure, man. I'm going to let you know if I get to Melbourne. It's been a minute. I was hoping to get to the to Brisbane. Sorry, I was hoping to get to the Melbourne Guitar Show, but it's looking like that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So there's a heap of them here. Let's go BB Pre. That's usually my favorite. I'm just going to clip the ass out of this. There we go. It's probably clipping. Right. Put a delay on. So all I did was just swap out the first effect, which was pitch. Enter. No, I want that one on and off. And then I go enter. There we go. Crank up the gain a bit. There we go. Yeah, I'm long overdue to get over to Australia, so I will definitely let you know, Aaron, for sure. I spoke to Adam Miller about that when I was over at the NAMM show. We hung out a little bit, went and saw him at his at the Nick Huber booth where he was doing playing his signature guitar, and I was like, man, we got to do some stuff, because we talked about a couple of years ago about maybe doing something, so hopefully we can make that happen soon. But like I said, I probably wouldn't use this for that. You could, but the thing I would do is I'd use a drive pedal in front of it, and then that opens up that channel for that block for having some other effect. Do you know what I mean? And this amp really doesn't sound good with drives in front of it at low volume like this. It's barely on, mostly because my mic here would just be clipping like mad. That amp really needs to be pushed a bit to get the drive pedals to work properly. What do you think of the new hat? Anyone who knows me knows that I love hats. I wear hats all the time. I have lots of them. This is Leadhead, company in Christchurch. This one here I actually bought from my favorite hat shop in Christchurch, which if you go to the Riverside Market in Christchurch, there's a dedicated little hat shop there. And I like this one a lot. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you can see, but it's sort of a brown suede type feel about it. I have another hat like this that's wool, and the other one, the wool one, just gets too hot, especially I wouldn't wear it in summertime, but so Aaron says, I like an amp in the room sound. How do you get something similar with the Fractal amp sims in general? Yeah, good question. I was watching this video the other day of this guy, Steve Stalachi. I think that's how you say his name. Really a fantastic YouTube channel if you haven't checked his stuff out. He does a lot of stuff on modeling and stuff like that. And he was talking to a Line 6 product developer, one of the guys who does the Line 6, you know, like knows about that stuff. And he was saying to him, how important is the monitoring of it all? This is a guy that designs those stuff, and he said 60% of it is your monitoring. Interesting, isn't it? Like, he designs those line 6 things, but he still feels the monitoring is more important than the unit itself. And I think that's part of it. So to me, it's like, you want to get a room sound, push some air. You know, when I use my FR Fender with the Fractal, I play loud. Like, I don't muck around with it. I use it just like I use a tube amp. I turn it up. For me, it's not, the reason to use it is not the silent stage. I actually can't stand the silent stage principle. I do it when I have to, like on a theater show. You know, you got to run your in-ear monitors and or headphones if you're not being seen. And you got to play direct, and it's hard work because there's not as much ambience with that. So what I do is I often run more reverb in those instances, because at least it kind of puts it in a space. But I don't like it with guitar amps either. Like, if I got a guitar amp with a microphone on and I got it right in my ear, it's like, eh. So to me, it's like, does the FR replace the cab, or do you still need an IR? You still use an IR. Use it just like you'd use. It's basically just a flat speaker. So use it just like you'd using, like I've got my studio monitors here when I'm listening back through stuff with that. Then I use the FR in the same kind of way. I'm just using it to literally just to monitor. So you still need IRs and cabs and all that stuff. But, you know, with those things, you can run them into your amp as well and just turn off the cab modeling and the amp modeling, and that still kind of works. It's just what I did in the weekend. But yeah, the amp in the room thing is a big part of it because it's what we want to. And the other thing too is I find if I play quiet, generally, it's not how the music is supposed to be, right? And I don't give a shit what the sound guys say. You know what I mean? I'm going to try and do stuff to make, because they want the best from the music just like I do. But really, my job is to make the music the best it can be, right? And if the music is supposed to have this kind of dynamic range, I'm not going to turn down and only have this dynamic range, because then what does the sound guy do? Well, they can turn me up in the PA a little more, but now it just sounds like shit. Nobody wins, right? The better thing for the sound people to do, if anyone's a sound man out there, is let the musicians do what they do. And now if somebody's obnoxiously loud and they're drowning out the band, that's different. I don't do that. I blend with what's going on with the band. That's what so if I'm playing rhythm guitar, I tuck it into the band. But it's my turn to solo, I make sure it sits just a little bit above where it should be. Listen to any record, except for Christopher Cross, Ride Like the Wind, right? Where they mix the guitar solo down and it sucks. And everybody thinks it sucks. His playing's great, but the mix is just wrong. That guitar solo should have been on top of the mix, but it was mixed badly. But you listen to any mix of guitar albums, listen to Hotel California, right? One of the classic guitar solos. Is the guitar louder than the drums? Yes. Is it louder than the bass? Yes. Is it louder than the keyboards, everything else? Yes, because that's where it's meant to be. So when I play with a modeler, same deal. I mix to the band, right? So if the music is meant to be loud, like it's getting really big and powerful, that's what I have to do, right? Now, most sound men, good sound men, understand that and just let you do your job. You do get some people kind of have an ego and they got to try and control everything. And in which case, most of the time I just tell them, I go, yeah, sure, I'll do whatever you want. And then I go and just do whatever I want. But like I said, I'm not being obnoxious. I'm trying to play to the band and blend with the band and make a sound together. But it's not not about them, because it's not them too. That's the sound men think it's all about them. It's not. They're not the one having to get up there on stage and perform for the people. So frankly, I don't really care what they want. Like, right? It's if they want me to, there's one sound guy who was insisting we only use monitors and no FRs or amps or whatever at this gig mid last year. And I was like, well, sir, I've already borrowed this Fender FR10 from a music shop and I got it set up here. And he goes, oh, well, I was told you guys weren't going to use amps. And I'm like, well, this is what I'm using. Sorry. And anyway, I kind of grumbled or whatever. And then I said afterwards, how's that? He goes, yeah, it was good. I was like, see? So he kind of had made up his mind that the guitar was going to be too loud before we'd even played. So that's on him. That's not me, right? I can't help that. But I'm really, really glad that I did that, because the keyboard player couldn't hear himself all night. He was just running through the monitors because he, they had a provided keyboard with the orchestra, and he kept asking the sound guy to bring the monitor guy to bring the keyboard up in his monitor, and it just didn't happen. They didn't turn it up. Now, do you think he had a good gig? Probably not. I mean, he plays his ass off anyway. He's going to. But if you can't hear yourself, how are you going to play with any expression or dynamics? Or you're just going to be playing hard to try and hear yourself, you know what I mean? And nobody wins. What does the sound guy then do then? Turn up a shitty sound? Nobody wins. Better thing to do is just turn the keyboard up where he needs it, right? But they didn't. That's why I always bring an FR whenever possible. I don't rely on the monitors because it's just too risky. And some people can't be trusted. And it's not their fault. I'm not blaming anyway, but there are times when they've got 10 million other things to do. They can't be catering to you, and you're the one up there having to perform. So for me, it's like I always make sure I have an FR and I just play it the way it's supposed to be, and I blend with the band. And if it's got to be loud, it has to be loud, and they just have to get over it. And I always try and be considerate. So I try and, like I don't try and point the amp out the front of house. I try and point it across the stage a little more so that they've got a bit more control in that sense. I also don't point it at people. Guitar amps are very directional and they kind of go like that. So I find that, even if I just like say somebody's standing right there, and so say I've got a person here and a person here, I'll point my amp right in the middle of them instead of at them. Do you know what I mean? Because I know what that's like. I remember sitting behind a French horn player one time, and the instrument's kind of weird. It sort of points around towards the back, and it was just killing me. Every time he played, I couldn't hear a blimmin' thing. I had to ask to move. And it wasn't his fault. He had a job to do. I'm not gonna like tell him to play any quieter, because that's what he has to do, right? But it meant that I couldn't hear a thing, and it was killing me. So so I'm always considerate of that. I try and point the speaker, the FR, wherever, or if I'm using a real amp, then I just point it where I need to. You know what I mean? But yeah, if there's a job to do the job. Anyway, folks, I'm gonna have to go in a minute. I hope you've enjoyed the stream today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all being here. I thought I'd just give you a quick look at this Fractal VP4. It is really good. It's funny, at the moment you're hearing the mic a little bit because you're hearing. I actually really like that sound of a little bit of the guitar strings blended in. You know what I mean? It's I often do that with recordings, is just put a mic near it. Cheers, Jeffrey Boyle. Yeah, I've got tickets for Toto when they're coming here in April. Can't wait to see Steve Lukather, the legend. So that'll be awesome. Anyway, thanks, folks. I'm going to have to go. I've got a bunch of stuff to do today. I hope the stream has come through okay. I'm going to persevere with OBS and see if I can get that going, because I think the audio will be better in particular, especially if I'm using the modeler. But I've spent an hour on it this morning. I spent a couple of hours the other day, and I just can't get the bloody thing to go. I don't know why it won't connect in. Who knows? I'll figure it out, though. Anyway, thanks very much. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.